Google is walking out of China. By 2027, every single Pixel device, phones, watches, earbuds, stop being made in China completely. That makes Google only the second major global smartphone brand after Samsung to fully exit Chinese manufacturing. And India has a particularly important role to play because this isn't simply about selling more pixels to Indians, it's about making pixels in India for the world. Apple has already shown the way. India has become a global iPhone manufacturing and export hub. Now Google appears ready to test whether India can do the same for Pixel. So why is Google moving out of China? Why does India matter so much? And is India gearing to become Google's next big manufacturing base? According to a Nikkei Asia report, Google plans to move production of its Pixel phones, smartwatches, and wireless earbuds completely out of China starting 2027. Now, Google has not publicly confirmed or announced the plan, but this is not coming out of nowhere. Google has already been shifting Pixel manufacturing to India and Vietnam as global technology companies try to reduce their dependence on China. And there is another reason that Google has relatively little baggage tying Pixel to China, because unlike Apple, Google has never had a major domestic Pixel smartphone market in China to protect. So for Google, leaving China is less complicated. But this isn't just a Google story, it's part of a much bigger global shift. China plus one. Companies don't necessarily want to abandon China completely. They simply don't want China to be the only place where critical products are made. The pandemic exposed the risks of concentrated supply chains. US-China tensions have added another layer to that, and tariffs have made the economics even more complicated. For technology companies, the message is simple. Don't put all your manufacturing eggs in one geopolitical basket. And this is where India enters the picture. Google already manufactures Pixel phones in India. Foxconn manufactures Pixel devices at its facility in Tamil Nadu, and Dixon Technologies, Padget Electronics, manufactures Pixel devices in Noida. That's in partnership with Taiwan's Compal. So Google is not starting from zero. It already has factories, it has suppliers, it has an established manufacturing ecosystem. And crucially, India has something else that Google needs: experience in exporting smartphones at scale. Now that experience has been built largely around Apple. Apple has dramatically, for instance, expanded iPhone manufacturing in India, with devices now being exported from the country to markets around the world. Driven by Apple iPhone shipments, India's smartphone exports touched a record high of nearly $10 billion in the first quarter of this financial year. That's almost a 20+% rise from the same quarter in the last fiscal, when exports were at $7.97 billion. And that has helped create an ecosystem of suppliers, contract manufacturers, logistics providers, and skilled workers. So when Google looks at India, it isn't looking at an untested manufacturing destination anymore. It is looking at a platform that another giant has already helped prove. So basically, Apple has already helped build the runway. Now Google wants to use it. And this is perhaps the most important part of the story. India is not attractive to Google just because it has a huge smartphone market. It is increasingly attractive as an export base. Google's Pixel exports from India are still relatively small, but they are growing rapidly. According to the latest figures, India exported 10,504 Pixel devices in just January and February this year. Comparable figure for a year earlier, just 602 devices. That's a more than 17-fold jump. For the whole of 2025, for instance, India exported around 31,000 plus Pixel devices. The numbers are tiny, of course, compared with Apple's iPhone exports, but the direction of travel is what matters. Google is clearly testing India's ability to become part of its global supply chain. Now, don't get carried away. India isn't replacing China overnight. China still has a massive advantage in supplier depth, component availability, manufacturing expertise, and of course, logistics. A smartphone may be assembled in India, but many of its components can still come from complex global supply chains. Building an ecosystem comparable to China's will take years, and Vietnam is a serious competitor. Google is expanding there too, and the country already has a strong electronics manufacturing base. So, this isn't really a battle of India versus China or even India versus Vietnam. Google is basically building a multi country manufacturing strategy, and India wants to make sure that it gets a big enough piece of that pie. So, why does this matter for India so much? The Pixel is just one smartphone. But it matters because every major global electronics company that moves production into India adds another layer to the country's manufacturing ecosystem. More factories, more suppliers, more skilled workers, more exports, more integration with global supply chains, and potentially more high value electronics manufacturing. And that's why Apple's India expansion mattered far beyond the iPhone. And Google's next move could matter for exactly the same reason. The real prize is not made in India. The real prize is made in India and sold to the world. Because if Google can make that model work, India's role in the global smartphone supply chain gets another major upgrade. Of course, there's also a geopolitical shift underneath all of this. China has dominated the global factory floor for decades. Now, one company at a time, that dominance is being diversified. Samsung moved much of its smartphone manufacturing away from China. Apple has been rapidly expanding in India while retaining production in China. And now Google appears ready to take another big step away from Chinese manufacturing. For India, that's the opportunity, not to replace China overnight, but to become increasingly difficult for global tech companies to ignore. You're watching Times Access. I'm Aditi Prasad. Press the bell icon below to subscribe and never miss an update from us.